James Gunn, Peter Safran, DC Studios, and the DCU are not in a very enviable position these days. Basically, they've got a bunch of movies that they need to release that were part of the DCEU that really have nothing to do with the DCU that James Gunn is setting up. But they need to go out there, support them, and hope that they get a few hits out there before the DCU actually kicks off with Superman Legacy. One of those movies is Flash. And I bought into the hype. Once I saw that trailer at the Super Bowl, I was like, damn, that actually looks like a pretty good movie. They were going out there and saying, this is going to be the best superhero movie of all times. I thought other people were buying into the hype as well, and it was probably going to be a really big success. Maybe the biggest success in the entire history of Warner Brothers when it comes to DC-related characters, even bigger than the Joker and stuff like that. It looks like that is not going to happen. In fact, it looks like The Flash starring Ezra Miller is going to be a big old flop. This is according to The Hollywood Reporter. The Flash starring Ezra Miller in the titular role is pacing to open in the $70 million range, according to sources who have access to tracking data. Box office insiders say that's a soft number for a movie that's been heavily promoted by Warner Brothers Discovery as the best superhero film of all times. Others note that a movie's hold once it opens is more important than the opening weekend gross. That last sentence right there is absolutely stupid. The hold is absolutely important. You don't want to fall off a cliff, but if you don't have a really big opening, the hold, for the most part, isn't going to matter unless you're like The Hangover, which was really an anomaly. I think another one that's kind of like that was actually the original Star Wars, which opened smaller and got bigger and bigger over the progressive months. But the box office doesn't normally work that way. If you don't have an enormous opening, the likelihood of your movie being an enormous success really isn't all that good, even if it does have a good hold. Now, a hold can save a movie like it did with Guardians of the Galaxy 3 just a few weekends ago. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 also opened almost twice to what they're projecting for The Flash at this moment with a $70 million opening. This is absolutely disastrous. This movie cost a lot of money to make. There are a lot of special effects. They had to bring in Michael Keaton to be Batman. They had to bring in Ben Affleck to be Batman. And they had to do massive amounts of reshoots. And then also, like, this thing has been promoted a lot. They were doing Super Bowl commercials. Those things are really, really, really expensive. This thing probably needs to make like $700 million or something like that worldwide just to break even. And with the $70 million domestic opening, there just aren't a lot of movies that open up to that, even with the stronghold, that will ever make it to profitability with the amount of money that Warner Brothers Discovery have actually put into this film right here. It has absolutely been a disaster. Ezra Miller is probably the person that most people are going to blame for this, but I think there's a couple of other things. I think one of the reasons that's really killing the DCEU stuff that's coming out now before the DCU actually launches with Superman Legacy is it feels like it's all dead, right? What's this Flash movie going to move into? They never said that it was leading directly into Superman Legacy. So does it matter? Like, if I want to invest in the DCU, do I need to support the Flash movie, even if it is the greatest superhero film of all times? And I like superhero films and I like the Flash, but I believe these movies being the DCEU and knowing that it's not going to be part of the DCU is absolutely killing hype for these movies and people wanting to support them and feeling like it's must see. Other than maybe wanting to see Michael Keaton as Batman and maybe Ben Affleck as Batman as well, and like a new Supergirl and stuff like that. So it is not looking good. The pick opens after tumultuous 2022 for Ezra Miller, who was arrested multiple times and was the subject of controversies, culminating in the actor issuing a statement in August of last year apologizing for their behavior and saying they would receive help for complex mental health issues. Miller stars in dual roles as alternate timeline versions of heroic speedster Barry Allen, with Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck making splashy returns to their respective Batman roles. Sasha Calais stars as Supergirl, while Michael Shannon reprises his role as General Zod from the 2013 feature Man of Steel. They absolutely threw all the bells and whistles into this Flash movie, and I imagine after seeing the success of Spider-Man No Way Home and kind of bringing all those member berries into the MCU, those other Spider-Men, and it was really successful. We're talking billions of dollars, one of the most successful MCU movies of all times, if not one of the most successful movies of all times, probably made Warner Brothers Discovery and David Zaslav think that this would be an enormous hit too, because people loved Michael Keaton as Batman back in the 80s and the early 90s. And people, generally speaking, did like Ben Affleck's Batman, even though it didn't really go anywhere and Batman versus Superman sucked, and so Justice League. I don't think anyone's interested in Sasha Calais as Supergirl, like whatever, and Michael Shannon as General Zod. What a weird casting that was. I think Zack Snyder did really good casting for the most part, but Michael Shannon as General Zod never really worked for me, so I don't know if he's a selling point, but they're trying to make it that way. It's like all the member bears hoping people were going to come back in. That's why I thought that Super Bowl commercial was so successful, because it did get me excited to see a movie that I had no intention of ever seeing. But Ezra Miller is no doubt an enormous turnoff when it comes to whether or not I want to support this movie and the DCEU in general. The fact that they haven't fired this guy outright. I know he's still in the movie and they're hoping to make some cash on this Flash movie, but after all of those misdeeds, like how many times does this guy get to fuck up before you say, never mind, man? We understand you're the star of the movie. Let's have Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck go promote the damn thing. They'd be better spokesmen for it anyway. And I think all the negativity surrounding Ezra Miller is certainly a reason that this isn't tracking very well. But also the fact that it's kind of a dead franchise in its current incarnation probably doesn't do it as well. And, you know, Ben Affleck was treated really badly. His Batman should have been a much bigger deal. And, you know, Michael Keaton coming back as Batman is cool, but you know, we already saw Michael Keaton return as a superhero. Well, at least as a villain as Vulture in the Spider-Man movie. So maybe they lost the nostalgia factor with Michael Keaton when he actually was already in a superhero movie in a different shared superhero universe. I don't know. I'm surprised on this one. I really am. I thought this movie was going to do at least $1 billion. I thought people were going to be really excited after that trailer. Maybe I'm the sucker on this one. After the tepid showing of Shazam! Fury of the Gods and Black Adam, Warner's DC movies could use a box office hit. At the same time, The Flash is one of the final films left over from the previous regime. The studio is now run by James Gunn and Peter Safran, who intend to relaunch the label with Gunn's Superman Legacy. Warner Brothers has 3 weeks left to make its final marketing push for The Flash, meaning there's plenty of upside in terms of generating interest and awareness, according to insiders. I don't know how they're going to get a Flash trailer in front of more people than they would on the Super Bowl and to generate interest in it. If that didn't do it, 3 weeks probably isn't enough. That was the one chance to get people really invested and ready to buy into the film. But they have had a lot of bombs, right? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, box office Viagra, just absolutely dies as Black Adam. Shazam! Fury of the Gods doesn't do as well as the first one. And I like the first Shazam movie. I was actually looking forward to it. I just started watching the sequel on HBO Go with my kids, and we haven't gotten through it. Hopefully it's as good as the first one, but I really like that Shazam movie. It's just such a weird place that James Gunn, Peter Safran, DCEU, and David Zaslav are in, to where they have these leftover remnants from the DCEU, which was firmly rejected. Everything they're releasing that's attached to it anymore is bombing, and the only movie they have left that they know is going to make money really is the Joker sequel, which has nothing to do with any of this. It has nothing to do with the DCEU or the DCU. It's got to be a tough place to be in. I would be furious. I would be so mad. Be like, the one thing we had that works connects to nothing. There's no guarantees that Superman Legacy is going to be a big success. James Gunn directed The Suicide Squad. That wasn't a big success. I found it entertaining, but it wasn't nearly as good as Guardians of the Galaxy. And quite frankly, I like Superman. I like Superman for all seasons. I like All-Star Superman and all that stuff. But they have yet to sell me that James Gunn, with everything that I've seen that James Gunn has created, can actually make a Superman movie and really launch this thing. It would not surprise me at all if the DCU just even bombs harder than the DCEU. People just had enough to you had about 8 tries to make your shared DC Comics hero shared universe work, and you whiffed every single time. Why would I even spend another dime on any of this stuff? So I know they're in a precarious situation. I know they want this stuff to be successful. I do think that David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery are absolutely looking forward to the day when they can actually unload the Warner Brothers part of that and just be Discovery once again. In a thriving DC universe with lots of billion-dollar grossing tentpole movies would certainly make it a more enticing buy for other studios out there. So we shall see what happens, but it looks like The Flash is going to be a big old flop. Ezra Miller is certainly an enormous part of that, but I also think the fact that it's just a dead franchise at this point, and the likelihood that you're going to see anything meaningful to the future of the DCU is pretty negligible, probably hurts that as well. Now, I did mention James Gunn in the Superman movie, and we have had a short synopsis of what he's going to do with Superman. As a Superman fan, as a YouTube skeptic, I personally find this pretty concerning. His plans for the character, it kind of makes me think he doesn't get Superman. If you haven't seen this one, definitely check this out right now. There's also a link in the video description.